Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to review a couple of DVDs I've been spending very many hours watching this week, which might appeal to some of you. The first one is Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide, which is released by Nucleus Films here in the UK in 2010. Now I understand it's actually only just been released in the US in June of this year, so some of you will probably just about have picked it up. And the second one is its sequel, if you like. So Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide Part 2, which was released this week by Nucleus Films, and both of them 3-disc sets. And I guess these documentaries will appeal to people that remember introductions to trailers that are a little bit like this.
You are about to see scenes of a film said to be the most controversial in the history of motion pictures. The movie they said could never be shown. In fact, you have read the headlines across the newspapers of this country and the world, and you have heard the news. This is the movie that could only have been made in South America, where life is cheap. It will shock you and astound you. It is not meant for weak hearts or weak stomachs. Because of the highly controversial and violent nature of this movie, we are only able to show you some selected, edited scenes at this time. But the complete, unexpurgated, unedited, uncensored version will be coming soon to this theatre.
They may also appeal to people who remember complete and utter prats, like this.
Research is taking place, and it will show that these films not only affect young people, but I believe they affect adults as well.
Now the first DVD here, Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide, it's, I say, 3-disc set. The first disc is the documentary Video Nasties, Moral Panic, Censorship and Videotape. It really is a fascinating look at the golden era of horror cinema, really, certainly for me. I mean, I remember going up to the local video store and renting out, based really on the covers. The covers were probably more interesting than a lot of the films, which and the documentary does sort of go into that a little bit. The documentary is about 1 hour and 10 minutes. It has an awful lot of ex-politicians, the idiot you saw before, who, I mean, he still seems very proud of what he did. I mean, a lot of people sort of look back on it with a certain amount of fondness. I mean, he doesn't. Also, Mary Whitehouse, of course, who jumped on the bandwagon without actually ever watching one of these films. But the whole documentary is very, very interesting, and it captures a moment in time which, in effect, you know, you had video certification, which wasn't, cinema certification, but you never had any video certification in the UK, and you had all of these independent video shops that sprung up and could in effect stock and rent out anything they wanted. There was no content control whatsoever. Now of course, as soon as the youth, well, me basically, at 12 years of age, the likes of me, once they realised that everyone was being corrupted, and as you saw before, including dogs, then of course they then rushed something through Parliament to make sure that all of these things had to go through the BBFC to get a certification. Now obviously that meant an awful lot of it was then cut, and there was a whole furore about everything. Now the two that I remember from this era were Snuff, which the beginning of the trailer you saw earlier, and Last House on the Left. Now both of those films, Last House on the Left is a classic by Wes Craven, of course, been remade recently, one of the good remakes, but that's a different story. And Snuff, which was basically an old film called Slaughter from the 70s, which couldn't get a distribution deal. So they took that film and they tagged on an ending where they supposedly killed the lead actress, cut her fingers off, pulled out her insides, etc. I watched it again. Actually, when I was 12, I watched this film, and I was convinced it was real. I really was. I mean, looking at it now, you laugh because it's obviously fairly primitive in terms of the effects that we use. But at the time, I was convinced it was completely real. And that's why everyone really watched it. The first hour or so was complete boredom, but that last 5 minutes, it's worth just buying the Blu-ray and watching the last 5 minutes alone, I think, really. Anyway, this set is 3 discs. Now on disc 2 and disc 3, you have the 72 titles that appeared on the DPP's banned list. I've watched the 4.5 hours of disc 2, which is basically the 39 titles that remained on the banned list all the way through. Some were added and removed. And basically what it includes is every trailer for every one of those 39 titles, and then the people that were involved in the documentary then explain why each one was banned. You have clips from each one. They discuss the films, etc. Very, very interesting. And I watched it in a couple of sittings, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I'll then watch Disc 3 shortly as well, which will be the other films that were on the list but had since been passed, I think. I haven't watched it, so I don't know, but I think that's pretty much what it is. So 3 discs, very good value. There's about 9 hours of material on here, so I wholeheartedly recommend it. Now the second one, I was a bit dubious about buying this. I actually bought it from the Nucleus Films website, and if you can see here, there's autographs on it. The first 200 copies that are bought from Nucleus Films website in the UK, Mark Morris, who I think is the producer, Jake West is the director, or it's the other way around, they signed this copy, and it's also limited to 6,666 copies on the back, and you can see my number there. Actually, the first one, sorry, I should have done this before, the first one was limited to, I think there was 5,000 numbered copies, and this is number 2,305. Anyway, this second documentary I actually found more interesting than the first, because it looks at the period from 1984, when the Video Recordings Act was brought in, up to 1999, when James Furman retired. And basically the documentary is called The Definitive Guide Part 2, Draconian Days. It could really been termed James Furman years, because it looks at someone who was brought in originally and who seemed a relatively reasonable person initially, and you can almost see throughout the documentary how he gets so full of his own self-importance, and by the end of it he is basically deciding what the whole viewing public can and can't watch on his own, going against all of his advisors, sacking half of them, and thankfully he left. When you think it wasn't until the year 2000 that we were allowed to watch The Exorcist here in the UK legally, it was absolutely crazy. I remember going in to the States in the 90s, going to the likes of Universal Studios, going on all the rides, and then going into the video store on the parade of shops that leads into Universal Studios, and basically buying illegal, or legal in the UK, videos, stuffing them in my briefcase, my suitcase, and trying to smuggle them back through customs in the UK, hoping I wasn't going to get searched. How ridiculous. And you're just talking about titles like The Exorcist, The Last House on the Left. Classic horror cinema here. You're not talking about some of the titles I can sort of understand why they were banned. I suppose the one that springs to mind is Night of the Bloody Apes, which has a lot of actual real heart surgery shown in it, which even the bits they showed on this documentary were pretty horrific. And the other one, of course, which I've never watched, is Cannibal Holocaust, and I won't watch that because of the animal cruelty in it. But again, I appreciate it's an important film in horror cinema, but just not for me. Anyway, going back to this documentary, James Furman just comes across as a complete elitist class twat, really. There was one towards the end. He said something about it's fine for him to watch them, but then he said he wouldn't want people in bedsits to watch it, and he's just sneering down his nose at people, thinking that because they may not have as much money or live in as big a house as him, that they're not able to decide what they can and can't view. It is absolutely shocking. This man should have been driven out of his position well before he retired. And it says a lot, really, about Britain, not for a short period of time, but for 15 odd years. This man was ruling roost and cutting things left, right, and centre. And I just don't agree with it. I never have. Thankfully we're in slightly better days now. But anyway, this documentary, you've got disc 1, which has that documentary on it, which is longer than the one on the first Video Nasties. This one's about an hour and 40 minutes, well worth a watch, thoroughly enjoyed it. And then disc 2 and 3, you have some more. You've got another 82 titles which were on a DPP third list, which these are the titles that they couldn't decide whether they were Video Nasties or not. So you could, in theory, get prosecuted for owning one, but I think in reality no one actually ever did. Now I've yet to watch disc 2 and 3 on that. I'm only watched, as I said before, the first 39, but it'll be a similar thing in terms of you'll have the introduction, reasons why they were banned, and the trailer for each one as well. And just going into the actual packages themselves here. So it's a 3-disc set, as I said, the first one, and you have the 3 discs here, and then also in the limited edition version, you have some of the infamous cover art for some of these movies. So you have the Cannibal Holocaust one. I mean, everyone remembers this in the local video store, right? And probably the granddaddy of all video nasty VHS tape covers is Driller Killer. I mean, everyone again remembers that. Got banned very quickly. Another one, I Spit on Your Grave, and one actually which I've never seen. I've never seen this movie. Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, which I think was just called Nightmare in the US. And finally, you have one for Zombie Flesh Eaters, or Zombie 2, giving its Italian title, which I have on Blu-ray actually. And then a final one, which again I thoroughly recommend this book if you can find it anywhere. The Art of the Nasty, which basically does look at the video boxes for all of the video nasties and has pictures of them all. And in the second video nasty box, very similar. So you have the 3 discs, and then again some video art. So Headless Eyes, never seen that one. Naked Fist, never seen that one. Of course, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can't believe that was on any list to ban. I mean, it's a harrowing film, but there's absolutely no blood in it whatsoever. And I mean, I think as most people will concede, it's probably one of the best horror films ever made. And Werewolf Woman, never heard of that either actually. But you'll certainly at the end of watching all of these, you will find some titles that you'll want to check out. I want to check out Bloody Moon for one, and I thoroughly recommend both of these. It's good to watch the documentaries back to back because it looks at the era from about 1980 through to 1999. I mean, I would like them to do a third one really. So if you're listening, Nucleus Films, please do, because we're still going through a situation of censorship in this country. I mean, recent films, Human Centipede 2 was cut in this country. A Serbian film, which is an incredibly difficult film to watch, but if you are going to watch it, you have to see it in the uncut version. I think it was about almost 15 minutes cut out of that one in this country. I think the remake of I Spit on Your Grave and its sequel as well were both cut in this country. So there's you have to really it's still going on basically, and I would like them to do a documentary which takes it from say the year 2000 and runs it up to the present day. Certainly, I imagine these sell pretty well, so there's probably a market for it. But anyway, search them out. They're very good films, and I hope you enjoyed my video, and I'll speak to you soon.